Good afternoon, everyone, and a warm welcome to you. My name is Shama Banerjee, and I'm the Senior Editor at Nimbus 90. We're delighted that you are joining us for this episode of our Networking Summer Series in conversation with digital leaders. So this series is all about getting a front row glimpse into the IT strategies of different industry disruptors, looking at how they build their digital advantage, as well as giving you the chance to discuss your challenges with experts from Equinix. So if you've joined us for previous episodes, thank you for joining us again. And if it's your first episode with us, thank you for joining us. There is a Q&A box at the right of your screen. Please do put any questions you have for our speakers in there, and we'll aim to get through as many as we can later on in the session. And before I introduce our speakers, I'd just love to encourage everyone to click into the poll on the left of your screen. You can answer the poll questions that we have there, and we'll be digging into the results of those later on in the session. So they should come up on your screen, and you can click in and answer that there. So today we are going to hear from Tim Hinchey. He is the Head of Cloud and Infrastructure Architecture at the DVSA, which is the Driver and Vehicle Standard Agency. He is leading a large digital transformation at the DVSA, and that holds a number of unique and complicated challenges. So he'll be sharing some of that with us this afternoon. And previously, he has worked at organizations such as CGI and Shimano. So Tim, thank you for joining us today.
No problem.
So I'll now hand over to Lorraine Wilkinson, who will be chairing the discussion. She is VP at Equinix. And she is responsible for implementing and progressing Equinix's sales strategy in the UK, developing existing customer relationships and supporting long-term acquisition of new customers. And previously, she has been Vice President of the UK and Ireland at Dell Technologies. So Lorraine, thanks for being with us this morning. I will hand over to you now.
Thank you, Shama, and welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us today. So easily one of the best things about working for Equinix is the opportunity we get to talk to people from a wide variety of industries. And I'm absolutely delighted to be speaking to someone from such an interesting organisation as the DVSA today. So a part of the government, almost all of us will have had some interactions with, whether that's getting your car MOT'd or actually taking your driving test in the first place. So once again, from me, Tim, thank you very much for joining us today. So to get the conversation started, Tim, I'd like to ask you to tell us a little bit about the DVSA and what you do.
No worries. Hello, everybody. I can't see anybody, so I can just see our faces, which is quite odd. So as Shama said, I'm Head of Cloud and Infrastructure Architecture at the DVSA. What does that really mean? I kind of haven't worked that out yet. As you can imagine, we're a large outfit at the DVSA with about 5,500 staff, but we provide services such as your MOT, driving tests for bikes, cars, heavy goods vehicles, buses, that type of thing, licensing for heavy goods operators and professional drivers and trailers, and a lot of permits around being able to operate in the UK from mainly EU countries. We do a lot of enforcement of heavy goods vehicles, mainly basically to ensure that they are safe to drive on our roads, so making sure that they're not overweight and the drivers haven't spent too long on the road, and braking systems are good, tire treads and things are good, because obviously heavy goods vehicles are the most dangerous vehicles on the road, and we don't want any accidents with them. So lots of services. You've probably used a couple of them, and we have really one mission, which is to make UK roads safer. The way that we do that is really through safe drivers and safe vehicles. So we ensure that drivers are safe to drive their vehicles, and we make sure that vehicles are at a standard of safety to drive on our roads. So it's pretty simple mission statement, really. And if you think about all the services that we do, they are there to make sure that those things are safe. Most people get us mixed up with the DVLA. And if you're one of those, no worries, it happens all the time. And we've got a kind of a funny end user kind of journey that you've probably been on, a customer journey that you've been on, which I think is quite It's quite comical, so I like to put it in. And it's about learning to drive and getting your full UK driving license. So when you first want to drive, you need to get a provisional license, which you go to the DVLA for. Then you take lessons, you come to us. Then you take your theory test, you come to us. Then you do your test, you come to us. If you want to then get your full license, you go back to DVLA. If you want to tax a car that you buy or register a car, you go to DVLA. If you want to MOT the car, you come back to us. So you kind of bounce in around the two agencies, which both sit under the Department for Transport. So hopefully that kind of places where we are and what we do.
Super. Thank you for that, Tim. So let me ask a question now about digital transformation. So whilst digital transformation is certainly not new, I think in the past 18 months, we've all been impacted in both our personal and business lives with the unprecedented disruption that the pandemic has brought. So really to start this conversation, can you share some of the shifts you've experienced within your business, and have you seen any acceleration in your transformation roadmap as a result of the disruption we've had over the past 18 months?
Well, so I could answer that question in so many ways, but we were in quite a fortunate position when COVID hit us, and I know it's not a very good statement, really, is it? But in terms of technology, we did a big transformation. Started a big transformation project about 4 years ago, which was a major cloud transformation that looked to in-house a lot of technology services. We closed down 2 physical data centers, which housed quite a few applications and services, and mainly our back-end services, the things that we call core infrastructure. So it's things like email, antivirus, those file services, all those back-end things that are pretty invisible to users. They use it, daily, but they don't really know it's there until it goes wrong, type thing. Obviously, your networks, wide area networks, wireless, all that kind of stuff is covered with that. So we started this big transformation project or program, really, about 4 years ago. A part of that, we redesigned our end user compute estate completely from the ground up. And we decided to take the opportunity of Windows 10 to start with a blank slate. So it truly was a transformation project, which I think the term transformation sometimes gets a little bit misused. But what we did is we blank slated completely, and we said, right, let's start, as the Agile methodology teaches us, let's start with what we believe the users need. And let's do some evidence-based research on what users want from end user computers. Because of our organization, the way that we work, we have a lot of people out on motorways and road system across the UK. We cover the whole of UK, so Scotland, England and Wales. So on those damp Wednesday mornings, we've got people standing on the roadside, basically making sure that the roads are safe, and we're trying to stop dangerous vehicles. Now, because of that, we've got a pretty unique set of requirements from our end user devices, which means they need to really operate in any environment, really, in any scenario. So connectivity is always a problem for us. Going to an office is not really a solution. We were finding that going to an office was a requirement as part of our research. So our end user devices were set up in a way that if they needed to get updates or applications or things like that, they needed to come to an office for specific things. Some stuff worked remotely, but lots of it didn't. So we thought, well, there's key transformations we've got to make to this end user compute estate. As part of that was we kind of run in parallel the cloud transformation as well, where we took the physical data center applications and services and tried to transform as many as we could in the time scale into native cloud services, public cloud services. And we are heavily AWS and Azure in the DVSA. So we tried to transform as much as we could, and because we ran them in parallel, it meant that we had the power to really radicalize the way that we do end user compute. And at the moment, we've got one of the most modern compute environments in government, I believe. We're fully cloud managed. The devices work from wherever the user works from. All they need is an internet connection. And from a security perspective, we built security in from the start. So they're actually the most secure devices we've ever had as well. And I'm more than happy to share any of the details around what we learned and how we did that. But what it meant was, coming back full circle to the challenges around what we've seen, over the last couple of years, was we were ready completely. We went from all of the back-end staff working from an office pretty much every day to everybody working from home overnight, and we hardly felt any strain on our back-end services. Our end user devices just worked. The only problems we really had, or kind of issues we had, were teams that had never worked from home before, and all it was configuration was missing. It was nothing to do with capacity, scalability, and the things that we did in the back end to ensure that we had services that were, natively scalable. They just worked. So yeah, we were kind of lucky. Now, one of the big challenges we did have, and lots of government agencies saw, lots of private as well in different kind of ways, but we saw a lot of external drivers coming in, a lot of external influences, such as borders being closed down, because we had Brexit running alongside the same time. So yeah, we had lots of external drivers. That was probably our biggest challenge, is that we were getting lots of pressure from very different areas, and they were pretty big and they had to be turned around pretty quickly.
Yeah, so it's, that's great to hear, and really interesting that, I guess you couldn't have thought about planning for the pandemic, but in planning for the transformation, you were more than ready. So I guess the next part of my question, and we talked about this the other day, Tim, which is around collaboration. And I guess the new technology you've implemented has actually enabled more collaboration within the organization. So I'd be interested to hear, more about how the transformation is enabling that collaboration.
Yeah, so I think this is where I think a lot of companies can really get some value, because, as I said, our operating model is very virtual. It always has been. So we've always been UK wide. Our staff, they will work in the same team, but geographically very, very dispersed. So virtual working has always been a requirement for us. There's been a lot of travel across the years, obviously, to help with that. But then we moved into this world of traveling is not allowed, and we've got to keep the safety of everyone in mind. And then the things that we did, the transformations that we did, really came into their own. And the best example we can think of, which actually was used before the COVID pandemic, which was Yammer. Now, we went Office 365. This is probably the best example we've got of cross-agency collaboration. But we went Office 365, as many companies do. And we took the kind of approach to say, we're not going to be prescriptive over what people use in Office 365 and what they use them for. We kind of made that decision to say, you work it out. We're going to secure the back end. We're going to make sure that we have control of the back end, but we're going to leave the doors open so that people can have a play. Now, the early days was, as you'd expect, I don't like it. I don't want to use it. I don't know what I use it for. Nobody's telling me what to do. And we stayed strong. We were very disciplined, and we stuck to what our vision was, which was just to allow a set of tools to try and boost collaboration, basically. Now, what happened was something that we didn't expect, which was the Yammer tool set. That was the one that we didn't think would grab really at all. But what it has enabled the agency to do has been almost invaluable. Our enforcement staff, they look for defects and sometimes pretty naughty devices on heavy goods vehicles. So for example, drivers will actually use magnets to stop tachographs. So what that basically means is drivers can spend more time driving, but the tachograph says they've been only driving for a few hours. Very dangerous position, because now you've got a tired person basically behind a wrecking ball, potentially. So the driving hours are there for a very important reason. Do not fall asleep at the wheel. Maintain full control of that vehicle. So we have both defects and some of these manipulative devices that are very important to not only find, but then know what to do once you found them. So Yammer has become a massive platform for us, where the enforcement staff on the roadside can now take pictures, post them into Yammer, and get a collective view from professionals across the organization on what to do in this scenario, driving a more consistent kind of operating model or a process, but also exposing and showing everyone what they found. It might be new discoveries, and it's just, honestly, it's just become such a powerful tool for us, and we didn't plan that. We never could plan that, and we wouldn't have been able to force that on the business if we wanted to. They found it, they use it, and now they are driving amazing value out of it. And it's great for non-enforcement staff to go into Yammer and see some of these stories as well, to really show what they're doing on the front line and what we're supporting and what we're helping them do.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a super story, and that's, super use case of, the opportunity the transformation has brought to the business. Do you think that actually, as a consequence of that, now the business sees what IT is doing as more important, and therefore feel it's more valued?
There was absolutely a drive, because I think the more time goes by, the more digital every company becomes. So yeah, the simple answer to that is yes. Digital is the heart now of most organizations. Ours is no different.
Yeah. So then let's thinking about that then, and maybe digging in a little bit deeper. The way Equinix views organizations is with an IT core and an edge, and obviously cloud. We see cloud as part, and then sometimes cloud is public cloud, and sometimes it's private cloud, which kind of fits into the IT core. And obviously edge will be different for different organizations and industries. But I'm kind of interested to understand how you're connecting up these environments and how you're optimizing these connections and making them efficient. And do you focus on physical infrastructure at the core and virtual at the edge?
Okay. Where do we go with this one? Understand traffic flows is massive. And what do I mean by that? The easiest analogy I can think of is, if you need to drive somewhere, you probably pop it in your sat nav. You prop the destination into your sat nav, and it gives you the fastest route to that endpoint. So often do I not see businesses do that when they talk about IT. So when you talk about core versus edge, it's all about where you're driving from and where you're driving to. Where are your staff and what are they trying to connect to? Is it an application? Is it a service? What kind of model is it? Is there just one destination, or do I just have to deliver a letter, which means I just need to go to a post box, and there's many post boxes I can do that in? Traffic flow is king. Or queen. Sorry about that. If you understand your traffic flows, you're ready, for me, 50% of the way there to designing your architecture around core versus edge. So what do I mean by that? Well, like I said, post boxes, they put one near to you because it's a bit of a pain. We know that lots of people want to access that service, so we've got to make multiple entry points. Now you're talking edge, you're talking, do I need to get people there faster? Will people use the post service if they had to drive 3 hours to go to a post box? Well, probably not. And then that drives down the demand and obviously revenue for those. But when you're thinking about IT services, you're talking latency, really. How long does it take for my users to get to the back end or whatever they're connecting to and back? So it's latency, it's the return journey. If you've got a lens on latency and traffic flow, you're 50% of the way there. It does bring me on to a point that I do like to put in around anyone that's thinking about cloud transformation or adopting cloud, or even data center. Even if you're traditional colo type data center or your own data centers, it's very important, which is the network team must be involved. You've got to bring them with you. I've got this saying where the network team is now twice removed. And what I mean by that is, when virtualization came along, so if any of you know what virtualization is, it's like Hyper-V, VMware, the ability to run multiple instances, servers, on top of a single physical server effectively, but obviously multiple appliances can do the same. When virtualization came along, the network team kind of took a back seat. They got benched, and the Wintel or the server management team, or whatever you call your platform team of whatever kind of terminology you use, that team kind of took over the virtual networking of the virtualization software. So it kind of benched your network team. Not on every single case, but in the majority of cases that I've worked in, and obviously I've worked for CGI for multiple contracts, and this is what I saw. Now public cloud has come along, it's now benched the Wintel team and the server management team, because now your application developers now have access to self-serve their own. So when you hear people think about your kind of operating model for cloud, one important area is to make sure that all of that experience, that best practice, that knowledge from those teams are still used in your cloud environment, because this will save you a lot of headaches going forward. It'll improve performance and efficiency, and it will stop misconfigurations and bad practice kind of sneaking in from the original designs, which can really hurt you as you go forward. So the twice removed means that the network team is so far away from cloud that they're almost afraid of cloud. And how many times I've heard a network engineer say something in the lines of, yeah, I've got to understand that cloud stuff. It's quite scary. And what you're saying is you're basically not bringing that tool set into your public cloud or private cloud environment. So that's what I would say around that. It's all, it's sometimes you can get blinkered by a bit of buzzwords like edge, compute, and agile infrastructure and all sorts, and like infrastructure as code, and there's lots of buzzwords that go around, and they all have their purpose, but sometimes the traditional stuff just works. The stack of IT has not changed. It's just the way that it gets delivered has changed, and the way that we can now provision is so much easier than it ever has been before, which then lends to faster delivery. But there is a very, very easy an easy scenario you can get yourself in where you leave your experts behind, unfortunately. So that's what I would say around core to edge. Understand your traffic flows, make sure you've got the right people working on it and designing it, and really think about your architecture before you build.
Yeah, that makes a great deal of sense. And, as we think about the need for flexible IT and agility, if you've got the experts on the journey with you, it must be much easier to get to your destination and what you're trying to achieve. One of the questions, and it really does relate to this, and I think we talked about it briefly, is this shift from CapEx to OpEx. And I know as a government department, there's a very strong desire for things to be CapEx, because you're spending the population's money, and therefore it's heavily governed. But I'd be really interested to understand how you view that, the agility design, and whether you're considering OpEx as part of how you bring IT to bear in your organization.
Yeah, so I think any organization just has to start to get more comfortable with OpEx and start to handle OpEx differently than it has done before. Now, I'm no expert in finance, but the simple way of looking at it is, your kind of capital investment versus your kind of bottom line run cost. But it does get a lot more complex than that as you start to dive into it. I think another area which is quite interesting these days is that question is starting to become a little less relevant because cloud providers are now starting to allow prepayments on a lot of their services, buy credits up front. So you can actually, it's not really CapEx because that's probably not the right way of stating it, but it's allowing you to front load basically and then manage it as a credit rather than having to react to bills coming through and then making sure the money is there to pay for it. But in terms of budget alignment and forecasting and stuff like that, nothing changes really. It's just the expenditure. So yeah, I think a company's got to get more comfortable with the way that they receive invoices. But again, I'm no expert on it. But yeah, it's you could dive into that so many different ways. For us, we do a mixture. We do a mixture of credit based plus kind of pay as you go. Although we do a lot of things like reserved instances and, like I said, prepayments, because it does bring your overall cost down quite considerably.
Yeah. So I have, just again, still talking about, kind of core and cloud. Do you want to share with the audience how Equinix have helped you with your cloud journey? Yeah.
So, this goes right back to the network element again. When I joined the DVSA, there was a really sticky situation where we had this big cloud kind of ambition. And a lot of companies have that now. It's cloud first or rent before buy before build, however you want to state it. Companies are doing the calculations, and it is cheaper to run in public cloud than it is to run on-prem in the majority of cases. Minus all the other stuff, let's just keep it on cost. Now, when I joined, there was this initiative, this ambition to move to a cheaper operating model and a faster delivery model. Yet the connectivity from the corporate network, of which then the computers and all of our other agencies, departments, and external suppliers would connect to was from the DVSA physical network, and it was completely maxed out in terms of connectivity up into public cloud, and it was only connected to Amazon Web Services. And it was connected through a partner, a supplier, so we didn't even have control over it. It was very physical, and it ran on not a really fast, basically internet line. So there was a lot of problems with it, and nobody really knew what to do to fix it. So we did a bit of research. We did a bit of what are we trying to achieve? What's our target vision? And we came across the Equinix Cross Connect service, so the Equinix Cloud Exchange service. And what's it done for us? Well, now we don't even have to think about it. We went from having some major transformation projects going on, such as the cloud and the EUC. We had tenders that were won by providers that basically designed the tender with Azure as the platform, it was the first time we were going to connect to Microsoft Azure, which meant we didn't have connectivity in place. We didn't know what to do. We had to do something, either buy kit or figure it out. So we came across the Equinix Cloud Exchange. So we went from completely stuck, no scalability whatsoever, and potential massive blockers to big projects, to today where I can now spin up a new cloud connection to any of the major public cloud environments through 2 geographical locations on the same day. I can do my bit within an hour. If Equinix are low on demand, they do it the same day. When I raise a request, it's done on the same day. Maximum I've seen it take is 5 or 6 days. So within 2 weeks, you've got a fully operating either new cloud provider, or for us, it's mainly a new area inside Amazon or Azure. So if anybody wants to know the detail, I'm happy to share that. But we have a lot of connections. We have about 50 direct connects into Amazon Web Services. So it is a very large operation, and you can imagine MOT is one of our biggest services. So they are big digital services. But yeah, we've gone from a place where we were completely stuck to now we have got years of growth and scalability. We've got something like I think we calculated the other day something like 4,500% of growth left in the platform. So we can basically scale out, scale up, and do what we want, and sell, and mainly self-service as well. There's only a little bit of stuff that Equinix do for us. So yeah, it's just enabled us to forget about the network side of it. But like I said, it circles back to the network, because if you don't have your network team involved, there's no way you can design and operate something like this.
Yeah, no, that sounds brilliant. And thank you for sharing that. Definitely flexible and fantastically agile. So thank you for that. So we're coming short on time. So we're at my last question. And I'd really like to ask about looking forward. How do you see the future of the business evolving and changing? And what are you going to need from partners and service providers to make this possible?
Good question. I guess it depends what angle we go for this at. So let's just look at it at kind of what the DVSA does. So we try and drive road safety. We are one of the safest countries in the world already for road safety, which is great. But we want zero accidents. That's probably our utopia. We want vehicles and drivers to be completely safe, and for there to be absolutely no collisions, obviously. What are the things that are going to threaten that, really? Well, autonomous vehicles, that's one that's coming along, which is really blurring the line between what a driver and a vehicle is. Is there a world out there where you can get a test done, which means you can't drive a car, but you can sit behind and operate an autonomous vehicle, for example? We don't know where that's going to go. There's some big external drivers coming from us, and especially when we're talking about heavy goods vehicles becoming autonomous, potentially in the future. And what does that mean? Apart from that, our efforts are going to be on efficiencies, really, doing what we do better, cheaper and faster, and drive, and hopefully driving that road safety northbound. So at the moment, where the DVSA is, the only big external driver we can think of in terms of business process is autonomous vehicles that I'm aware of.
Yeah. Very interesting. And it sounds to me like, particularly the innovation that's going to be needed around autonomous vehicles across multiple industry sectors is going to require partners and service providers to come together to collaborate with all the different entities to help to create those solutions that work for everybody in the population. So
and it'll be very data driven. I believe a lot of it's our focus is turning a lot towards data and being able to share data with as many people as we can, and start to drive some of the things we do from those data sets. So when autonomy comes along, hopefully the telemetry from those vehicles is going to help us do some real clever stuff. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be like massively in the short term, obviously, but we've definitely got an eye on that, and that's probably our biggest influencer that's coming. Yeah. But who knows when?
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you, Tim. I think it's been a great conversation. I'm sure it's been really relevant, not only to kind of the partners and service providers that are listening on the call today, but also many of the other industry sectors from the people on the call today. Now, we have obviously the polls, and we may have some questions online. So I'm going to hand back to Shama. So hopefully she'll be able to check in on the polls and see if there are any further questions for Tim.
Great. Well, thank you, Lorraine and Tim. Thank you so much for sharing all those insights. We do have a handful of questions coming through, so I'll just pull those up quickly. We've got one question here from Kate Bond. So Kate, thank you for putting that question in, and I can see you put more in, so I'll try and make our way through as many of those as we can. So Kate is asking, is the build out, innovation and strategy of your team led primarily by the tech or the business, or both?
There's a question to start with. Is the build out of
innovation and strategy of your team?
Very much around business, definitely. I don't really know where to go with that. Our strategy is publicly available. You can see the 5-year strategy there. I think it's due for renewal. It might have been renewed already. But yeah, it's definitely heavily focused on UK safer roads. Safer UK roads. That is our driver. No pun intended. Definitely.
And in terms of the innovation side of things as well, does that sit more on the tech side or the business side?
In the business, yeah, the business side. We've got. We did have a piece looking at something really innovative, which actually turned out that the technology wasn't ready. That was a pretty cool piece. I can share that with anyone who wants. I don't know if I'm allowed to do it on video, but we've also got some things like augmented reality going on at the moment. We've got some automated route planning going on, being built out by a university, and they are driven by, the AR one, the augmented reality is looking at 3D models of heavy goods vehicles and being able to use it for training to help people identify defects and things like that. So yeah, the innovation is around, the business process, definitely.
Interesting. One question which has come through, I think, coming back to almost the more human side of your mission rather than the tech side. We've got a question here which is talking about, is there any working going on with the DVSA that could support to train the behavioural aspect of drivers to promote safe driving?
You're talking to an infrastructure architect. Do you know what? It's probably best for me to take that one away. So if you want to put me in touch with whoever's asked that question, because I won't do that justice. I'm not responsible for, how do we ensure that a driver is safe? It's a very good question, and behavior is a massive aspect, obviously, to a safe driver. So very good question. I would say, why don't I take that away and get somebody from my agency to answer it?
Definitely do that. And I think we've probably got time for one more question, which is focusing more on team and kind of encouraging IT teams. So I've got a question here which is looking at asking, do you ever feel you're overly focused on defects, bad behavior, rather than encouraging the good behavior and practices and highlighting, rewarding when you see them in your team?
Good question, and it I guess you could probably answer that differently based on each team. We do have good recognition schemes and rewards inside the agency, and they are used pretty heavily. Psychological safety you're talking about here, and it's a constant maturity model, let's put it that way, to create psychological safety in an organization. So it's a very good question. I don't think we've got an answer that actually fits the whole agency. I think every team is different. You're absolutely spot on with what we should be doing. But yeah, it's a maturity model. Make sure you recognize when people are doing a good job. That will help everybody, and it'll make people happier.
Definitely, very important in this climate for sure.
Absolutely.
I think that is a very good note to end on. We are almost out of time. So Tim, thank you so much for sharing all of that insight. And
thank you, guys.
This morning, it's been great to have you.
Thank you.